week back for DCPS teachers. Wow. Can you believe it? You may have seen some smiles on a couple of the DC Collab staff faces, not just because we're happy to see you, which we are, but every time our little doorbell rings to invite one of you into this session, there's been a little contest who can get to the door first to get you in. So it's been kind of amusing to watch that happen. So that brought a smile to me watching that. We were having some fun. So today's conversation is a really important one, once again, with, I think, our most popular board member, guest, partner, champion, Mary Lambert. These are always really important sessions with Mary, especially as we're kicking off a new school year and, again, an unusual school year. So want to thank the DC Collaborative team for putting this all together, to thank all of you for joining us for these very important conversations, and want to hand the mic over to Mary Lambert for our fall update.
Thank you, Lisa. Hello, everyone. And your kind words were needed after a week of trying desperately to make our teachers feel more confident and ready to teach on Monday. It's been a very hard week on the teachers, and we've done our best to support them, but it's been a lot. I was telling Trey in the meeting we were having earlier that the vast knowledge of technical ability amongst our teachers is so broad that even trying to offer sessions for beginner, intermediate, and advanced was not specific enough, because the beginner level was so broad in what that beginner meant to them. Teachers who can't even sign on to email versus somebody who's just never been on Canvas before. So those are very different knowledge bases. But so thank you everyone for being here. I hope I will be able to offer you all the information that you need. It's so wonderful to see all of your faces. It's, I went from having monthly meetings with many of you to then just not seeing you for a few months. And so it's wonderful to see you. So DCPS and the virtual learning environment. We are very proud of how much we have been able to accomplish in a very short amount of time. So as many of you probably know, our LMS, our learning management system, will be Canvas. It's something that we have as a district had around for 4 years, so it's not brand new. However, especially on the elementary side, many of our teachers have never used it before. It was primarily used with our secondary level schools, and some schools like McKinley Tech, it was a mandatory and had to be used. A lot of the other schools, it was never touched other than looking at what our curriculum units were on there. Plus, we have a lot of new software that we have launched to teachers as well to support the ability of being in a fully virtual space. So it's not just the one new system or one new platform that they have to learn. I know a lot of you have questions about the scheduling, and I'm going to show you an example schedule. However, I will say that this is one of. There are several versions of these schedules, but this will kind of give you at least a little idea on what is available out there. Bear with me. So my Chrome tab. Okay. Are you able to see, and can anyone confirm?
No, we can't see yet, Mary.
Not yet? Okay. All right, one moment. Let me just share my desktop to make it easier. Okay. So now can you see the schedule, everyone?
Now we can see it.
Great. So this is a K through 5 grading example, or a scheduling example. So you can see it is slightly varied between kindergarten through 5th grade, but it is a full day for this school. So this shows how in the morning they have ELA, then they move to math, lunch, and then inner core for us is what other people call specials. So that includes world languages, arts, music, theater, and then would also include health and PE in there too. And then there's some opportunities for small group instruction for students who need some assistance. And then the social studies and science it's added in there in the afternoon as well. And then only one day a week do they have that final till 3:15, but otherwise it's basically until 3 o'clock. Now this would vary greatly to middle school is going to have about 5 or 6 classes per day in a similar fashion where you have the ELA, math, social studies, science, and then their inner core. And then for high school, it's running pretty much the same as their normal, where they have 4 classes a day. It's a 4x4 schedule. So they have 4 classes a day on, say, Mondays and Thursdays that are the same. And then everything on Tuesday and Friday is different. And then they have the Wednesday as their independent work day. So that is the basics of the schedule, because again, it does vary quite a bit from school to school, but that is the typical for elementary that you just saw there. There are some schools that are pushing it more to the morning and the afternoon block for elementary, but that is sort of one-off for that. What students are expected to encounter in these is, especially on the elementary side, a maximum of 45 minutes at a time of the synchronous learning. So it is encouraged with teachers that they allow the students to have the breaks to either go and work on a project and then come back, or having small group time so they're at least experiencing something different from the whole class environment. And then teachers, depending on the size of the school too, may have a group A, group B per grade, or they might have everyone together, depending. So a smaller school that's maybe only 250 kids could have all of the kindergartners together on that virtual learning, versus Lafayette with 800 kids may not be able to have that function. So. Within virtual logistics, so there are things like physical supplies and the software, which I'm going to show you all that in a moment as well. So that will be available, and we are still expecting students to do the physical aspect of the arts. So still creating on paper, still physically moving, singing, working with instruments where possible. We are taking advantage of this virtual learning to look at art in a deeper dive and in a newer version. So a student who would normally have a band class, they obviously can't really perform together in the normal ensemble fashion. However, we can take advantage of the fact that this is a time for them to really investigate what is the purpose of their instrument in the band, what is their purpose of the voice in the choir, and how can they self-analyze their own work and really work on tweaking their voice or tweaking their ability to use the instrument, and then bringing it back into an ensemble performance style, which we have several supports for doing the virtual performance as well, which is wonderful. So I am going to go ahead and share with you all a couple of slides from a PowerPoint that I used with the teachers, because I think that it will give you some information that will be helpful. And then we'll jump into background checks and then leave time for Q&A, because I'm sure there's lots of that. Let me pull up my screen again. Okay. All right, do you see our beautiful blue rooster?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, great, wonderful. So I wanted to let you know too, we've had a couple of changes in the way that we shared some of the partner resources that you all have made. And thank you again for creating so many wonderful experiences for our students to give that deeper dive into what they're learning. But we made on the homepage for our teachers for every course, there is this page here that shows all of the partner resources that we link to directly, and then any close viewing resources or close listening resources. And then this is just simply the original unit plan for them to reference. And then we've also created pages within each unit that are placeholders for them to use. So if they were going to use this Navajo weaving project from the Kennedy Center, there's already a page within their Canvas units set up for that, as well as these links here. We are moving forward with our fellowships and coaching. So we have the ACE Fellowship, which has been an existing one run by Lindsay Vance on our team, who's also an art therapist. I know many of you know her from either there or from Project Create when she was there. And she does a Cultivating Compassionate Classrooms Fellowship that is still going. It runs January to December. They just finished up their summer retreat. It's really all about the trauma-informed classroom. And then our music cohort for fellowship is moving into a new version where it's just going to be professional development based. We are in the process right now of working with teachers on what that specifically will look like. In the past, we've focused it more on curriculum and technique, but we wanted to see specifically what kind of PD and a sort of an elite group of teachers would want to have that then they can pyramid that out to the other teachers as well. Would be a part of that. And we are also doing a fellowship with Adobe Creative Suite where once a month teachers will meet and they'll learn a new aspect of Adobe Creative Suite, and then they will have a badge through Adobe and DCPS that they can add to their tagline and their resumes at the end. I want to jump forward a little bit. So this is the software that we have added in specifically for the arts this year. So Adobe Creative Suite in the past was only available for our students in grades 9 through 12. We've made an expansion so that it's now for grades 6 through 12. We do have a little bit of a limit in that the devices don't necessarily have the memory to hold all of the apps from the Creative Suite. So for the most part, most of the teachers may only use Premiere or only use Photoshop, not the full suite. On the other side of that, there's Adobe Spark, which is completely web-based. And so all of our students, all grades, all content areas are able to use that. And then we're Autodesk Sketchpad, which is a really wonderful drawing and painting tool online, is completely free this year. So we're advertising that out for our pre-K through 5 students and teachers to use as their digital arts use. On the music side, we're using Quaver for elementary, Soundtrap for 6 through 12, and Smart Music for 6 through 12. So those are what we're using. The coming soon on the music is just simply that the final licensure hasn't been purchased, so it should be up in the next couple weeks. And so if you are working with any of our classes and wondering if they're using certain software, you can refer to this as well. And then the supplies that either we have provided or we've had some really wonderful donations made from local partners towards getting physical supplies for visual arts and music. So for the visual arts for elementary and secondary, so elementary little grades will have crayons and sketchbooks, older grades in elementary, color pencils and sketchbooks, same with secondary. And then our connected schools, which are 10 schools that are the schools on a growth plan. They are getting full art kits and music kits, and that is thanks to a wonderful donation from DC Commission on Arts and Humanities, who is supporting us with that. On the music side, the elementary kids are getting rhythm sticks and recorders, and then secondary ensemble kits. We have, you know, for a student who already has an instrument, we have some pieces like a trumpet mute, a little mini music stand. This kit just provides the basics that a student would need to be able to actually practice from home. And then our connected schools are also getting headphones due to the DC Commission donation. Some other donations we got to put out there because we are incredibly grateful is National Gallery of Art has given us a really large donation of several color pencils and sketchbooks and crayons. District Clay has made kits for select secondary ceramics programs to be able to have at-home clay kits. And then the Hirshhorn has some kits that match up as well for our elementary folks. So we are incredibly grateful to all of those partners that we're able to support. One other thing that we have that we're launching this year is Mr. Holland's Opus Foundation has a program called MEDS, and it goes into a school district and they do several internal to the school district data and survey polls. They look to see where there are gaps in the education. And we are really excited that we have this opportunity, because paired up with what the collaborative is doing on sort of an internal and external data collection, it will really give us a very robust set of information for, at the end of this year, we can really analyze what's happening in DCPS on a deep equity level. So how much are teachers actually spending on supplies versus what, you know, a kid who has the PTSA and other groups to help? Where are there gaps in the feeder programs? So if a kid starts at elementary A in a huge band program and then goes to another middle school that has nothing, and then to a high school with choir, what has happened to their music ability? So along with all of the partner information and where partners are around the district from the collaborative and what is being offered outside of school, I'm very excited at the amount of information we will all have for advocacy. We will move mountains, I think. And then the last piece around updates from us that I wanted to share with you is we do have a new DCPS Arts website. It is artsdcps.com. And it is a website that houses all of our curriculum and units, our framework for arts and learning, all of the events that we will have once we know whether virtual or in-person events are going to happen at some point this year. All of our resources that describe pretty much everything to do with our projects. And then we also have a tab here on the end called Collaborators. That was the way that we could discuss partners and not have to separate between the partners who are signed MOA partners versus our local arts education support groups. So you are all collaborators now in DCPS for the arts. All right, so let me come back and I will stop my screen share. And to give you even more information to follow through, let me pull up the background check information. So Lisa, Trey, and Tracy, have you all sent out that email with the basics yet? I'm not sure on the amount of learning.
For all of our members who are working with us in the fall, for our, specifically the fall lottery of August, they've received information regarding the background check and indicated, you know, I've indicated whether or not their programs would need to do a background check or not. But for those who are not participating in office, but maybe still having programming in the fall, through their own outreach, it could be helpful for them to know the information as well.
Definitely. So the background checks has gone through several layers for us, because initially the big worry was if we do background checks, especially with the TB test, and then we go back to school in November, if we've said, okay, well, if you're offering virtual opportunities and you need the background check, but you don't really need the TB test, do we have people do a new background check, including the TB test, once we're in school? And is that necessary? And would our systems support that? And basically, our systems don't support that. We can have you change out from semester to semester on the type of background check that you would need. So the official word that we've sort of all gone through several scenarios of what type of engagement would you have with our students. So if you are engaged in the virtual atmosphere with our students, so whether that is a field trip or a performance or coming in to talk to the students, that sort of thing, there is no clearance needed if you are doing a live streaming event with no direct student interaction. So you can't see the students, there's no opportunity for you to chat with them. And there's no clearance needed if it's a one-time fully supervised by a DCPS employee event with student interaction. So if it's just one pop-in to show a performance with a school, and maybe you are having a talking or discussion moment, but if it's just that one time, and as long as the teacher is there or a DCPS school representative is there, you do not need the clearance check. A clearance check is needed if it is repeated, so more than one time event, still has to have the DCPS employee there. but it can include the student interaction. So whether that's just chat or you can only see them. So one time or repeated is the big difference between the clearance versus the non-clearance on the virtual world. For in-person, once we get to that world again, no clearance is needed again if it's a one-time event fully supervised by a DCPS employee, either at the school or at the program site. A clearance is needed if it's a repeated, more than one-time event, still fully supervised with a DCPS employee. We also have, we have entered into a partnership with Field Prints, which is an office that does the background checks. They have several locations around the city to make it easier so that, because if you've had your background check done at DCPS, it's a very small space. There's no way that we can ensure the social distancing. So we've entered into this partnership. I believe it runs through the end of September. Do you remember that date, Trey, that they told us?
I don't remember.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's end of September. Maybe it was something specific like September 23rd, but I can find that out and let you know if that's needed. But that will be available until that date for you to go get those background checks at those locations. So not having to go to DCPS.
Yeah, and then also reiterate that if you do need to get a background check, it is free. There's no charge associated with it. Going off of what Mary said again, though, if once schools reopen and in-person field trips or in school residencies and all that resumes, and the TB test is required, that is not free. It is contingent upon your insurance or your employer's insurance to be reimbursed for that. But DCPS nor does DC Collaborative reimburse for the TB test if it's needed.
Definitely. And I put the Field Print DC web address in the chat for you. So,
Mary, real quick before you go on, I know someone asked if you're able to share the slides with us.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't know if you can forward that or if there's a shareable link you can put in the chat.
Sure. I just need to reconfigure because I was showing from an internal PowerPoint, but definitely, yes, I can share those with you all.
We'll also be sharing a recording after this. We'll send that out to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll also just reiterate, because I know we had some questions on this from some of our members, but if in the situation where you're doing a live streamed event, so let's say your organization or you as a teaching artist are doing some type of live streamed performance or live streamed question and answer panel or anything like that, and then maybe you'll have Q&A in a text in a chat box, you don't need to do the background check for that. But and then let's also say you're doing a live stream and then you have a post workshop with the people who were on the live stream. You still don't need a background check because the live stream event, there's no interaction, and then the post workshop is just a one-time event technically as well.
Mm-hmm. The steps will be updated on the DCPS clearance site. They just were getting past the craziness of these couple of weeks.
Liz, no. So if there is just a one-time single event, it does not require a background
Right.
check.
Karen was asking what connected schools are. Sure, so you can actually Google them. I've just put in DCPS connected schools and you can see the full map. But they are 10 schools from across the city, and so in all 4 quadrants. There's 2 high schools and 2 elementary schools. The rest are middle. And they are schools that when we did the STAR system that was launched last year, the year before, the STAR system of ratings for schools from 1 to 5, they were the schools that ranked the lowest in the 1-star schools. So the STAR system looks at park scores, it looks at community engagement, it looks at availability of courses and supports within the school. So it's pretty holistic the way that they score it. Definitely weighted heavier on the park scoring, but includes a lot of the factors. And so the 10% of the lowest rating 1% schools were created into the connected schools. And it was meant to be an initiative where we could flood these schools with a community program manager that really connects to the community to see what is needed to help improve the school, but then also several resources that help to bring the school scores up. So the idea is that they can move these schools from a 1-star to a minimum of 3-star within the 3-year time period.
Thank you. I knew about them, but I just didn't know the name of them. Was Moten one of them?
Mm-hmm. Moten and Langley are the 2 elementary schools.
Okay. I'm sorry. My internet blipped when you said the names. Thank you, Mary.
No problem, of course.
So we have a few other questions that have come in, Mary. So do the TB tests need to be done before going to field print? I know that with DCPS, you did need to have proof of your negative TB results prior to getting you cleared to even get the background check in the DCPS clearance office. With field print, I don't know, but you shouldn't need to get, I don't believe you'll need to get the TB test this fall if you're doing virtual programs. So I don't think you have to worry about that for right now. And I don't think your programs, from what I remember, require a background check, Jocelyn. But I do think you do, before you get the background check, need to show evidence of a negative TB test when that's required. And then Joan asked, as you're talking with teachers, what are the biggest concerns they're carrying in their head as they head into the new year?
The biggest thing right now is the specifics around the technology. We, especially on the elementary side, it's a little bit harder because the way our systems are set up, the arts teachers don't have their own course set up in Canvas, our programming. It has to be linked to the homeroom teacher. And so there's a lot of sort of workarounds and a lot of professional sharing that has to happen. And so that's the biggest stressor on them right now is getting all of that, along with just, and same with all of us, entering into this new world that none of us have been through before. And how do we still show our students how much we care for them and offer them the rigor and the joy that we always have and connect with them. And then, of course, you know, for teachers, the worry of, why is little Joey not on my course right now when he should be?
Another question from Ria about scenarios in which a DCPS teacher would not be in a class with a field trip or live stream experience. And that probably would not happen, especially with the younger students. The only time that I can imagine that happening is if there's a teaching artist who wanted to do some type of one-on-one scene work with a small group of students that typically they could be able to do during a an in-school workshop or in-school residency. But over virtual, there won't be a situation where some type of scene study or monologue work or individual artist coaching could happen without a teacher present. So that's an instance when that would be happening, but would not be happening now. I don't know if you want to talk on that at all, Mary, but I think—
I would just say that I think that statement is sort of for the benefit of the teacher to hear that, as well as you all. I mean, as you know, with field trips, like reminding the teacher that they have to be there is always just a good reminder.
Liz is asking, when you use Canvas as your LMS, would the teacher provide the link to the museum educator, or would we supply the link? Liz, could you clarify what you mean by link? Link to the like meeting link, or the link to just—
Yeah. So if we were doing a virtual tour, just like you supplied the link to this meeting, which allowed me to get on, would that be what would happen? It would come from a teacher or supervisor, as opposed to me, the museum, sending it out.
It depends on what the program is. And so I know for Office, if you're working with a collaborative and using our platform, which is a Microsoft Teams platform, and we are setting up the virtual experience on your behalf. We would be sending out that link to you and to the teacher. If you're coordinating the event on your own platform, without the DC Collaborative, only using us as the registration, then that would be something that you'd work out with your teacher. I'm sure many teachers wouldn't mind sending you the link into their classroom. It might be easier that way. It's
already protected too that way, which is just, I guess, what I would put out there is if you don't have the educator version of Zoom or some of the other platforms that are secure, I would default to asking the teacher to share their Microsoft Teams link because it's already secure, so nobody can come in without being a part of the class.
That's another thing too, Mary. I know we've gotten a lot of questions about whether or not you can use Zoom or Google Meets. As a collaborative, we've been deferring and telling people that Teams would be the easiest, most reliable video conferencing platform to use, since that is what's pre-approved by DCPS, and it's the system that you all are using with all of your schools.
Right. So Teams is the preferred, only because it'll be what they are used to using. However, you can use Google Meet or Zoom or any of the other links. You know, I would default to thinking of the grade level. You know, a ninth grader is going to be able to manipulate multiple platforms much easier than a kindergartner whose parent is trying to do work and watch them on the computer at the same time or something to that effect. So you know, defaulting to Teams is the preferred, but the others are okay.
We have another question about how are the art supplies getting to the students? Do they need to pick them up from the school, or are they getting mailed to them?
They will be at the school distribution times. So there are several supplies going to each of the schools, from everything from food, as you know, with the food distribution, groceries, the technology, the devices. There are several just basic human needs type offerings being given to a lot of the schools too, especially when thinking of like our homeless students and some of the groups that are farthest from access. So there will be rolling weekly distributions happening at pretty much every school. So majority of the supplies, art and music supplies, are being delivered to our warehouse where we will bundle them by school, and then the school will distribute them out to the students and teachers. We have looked into finding some ways for like there's one story I know with the technology that we were working on where it was a mother of 4 kids. All 4 kids are at a different DCPS school, and the mother was immunocompromised. So for her to go and wait in 4 lines and, you know, deal with all of that was more than really she could feasibly do. So we were looking into if there's like a delivery service or something to that effect. I know some of the schools are doing that, where they are doing drop-off sites maybe in a neighborhood or going directly to the students' houses as needed. So.
Another question we received was just about the differences in the high school experience from the K-5 experience. And I know that high school and middle school are both kind of on a similar calendar or daily schedule, if you want to speak on that.
Sure. So I would say probably the closest to the, well, actually, no, really all of the school levels are pretty close to the normal school schedule that they would have. Because a lot of elementary students only see their art or music or theater teacher once or twice a week. So that will be the same. High school, it'll still be twice a week for an hour and a half for the most part. Middle school will be about the same that they normally have, twice a week. The biggest change will be the length of the semester and the terms. So any class that was scheduled to in the past to be 1 semester long will only be 1 advisory long, so 9 weeks instead of 18 weeks. And any course that was a year long is now 1 semester long, with the exception of some schools are able to take those year-long courses and create them into a truly a year course, specifically looking at courses like AP, and some of the band courses too. Some of the schools that have fuller band programs, they are honoring the year long.
Next question was just about, was the schedule you provided sample or standardized across schools? Should we offer live office tours for 3rd to 5th graders only at 1:15 and 1:45?
It is just a sample. So there are schools, like a larger school would probably likely have to have morning blocks and afternoon blocks to be able to have the teachers accommodate the number of students. There are some schools that will have a full Wednesday break as well, where all of the individual time with teachers is going to happen just in on Wednesdays, not scattered throughout the day. Yeah, I wish I could give you a set schedule, but it really is not.
Yeah, the thing that we're recommending is that you reach out to teachers directly. And so with the office lottery this year, there aren't a lot of office providers who gave specific times. And so the thing that we would suggest is that if the school selects your program to participate in for the fall lottery period, that we will provide you with that teacher's contact information, and you can set up a specific time that works best with their school schedule to have that program. And that would be easier probably than providing a specific time.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a way for us to supply the needed materials to schools for a particular art or craft activity? So if you're
yes. yes. I would say just send me an email and let me know sort of the scope, capability of what you're thinking of doing. Is it a specific dollar amount that you have to do something and you want me to come up with the best or the greatest need? Or do you know that you have access to 20,000 watercolor pans and you want to support us that way? Yeah, definitely. And
correct me if I'm wrong, Monica, but this is for your project that you already have kind of a specific materials for and a guidance for what the activity is. And so you're asking how would you supply schools with the materials for your specific activity? Is that for all students or just students who are interested in your activity? That makes sense. Yes. Okay.
Great. So it would be similar to what I'm already doing with the supplies that we have. You'll just work with the teacher and you can drop it off in a large box. You'll just need to know when the custodian is available to meet you at the front door to pick up that box, and then the administration will hand it out on those distribution days, or maybe you could work with the administration to be there on the distribution days and give it out. If you're doing it for multiple schools, that may not be feasible. But the one thing I will say is that make sure you're in really strong communication with the school of having a phone number for somebody who's going to be there when you go to drop off the box of supplies. Because if they're saying, oh yeah, the custodian's there every day from 8 to 12, well, the custodian could be somewhere in another part of the school and not hear you knocking on the door, or you don't want to just leave a box of nice supplies sitting outside and then hope that they're going to see it before they leave for the day. So I would just advise that you get a phone number for whoever you're meeting.
Karen, I see your question about creating a separate Teams account. Can you clarify on what it is that you want to work on with teachers through the technology?
Yeah, several teachers have approached me and asked me how I've done videos and how I set up the iPhone and the light stand and the tripod, that sort of thing. And they requested that we just try some things last week before school started, so that they would be more comfortable with certain arrangements, height of phone and all of this, some just physical setups of teaching visual arts and other things. So we were trying to do it through Teams, and I have Teams, but it's not a DCPS Teams. And so, I can't communicate with their Teams because it's a DCPS Teams. So it's true that I can't be on their teams because I don't have a DCPS email. Is that correct?
No, anyone can be added into a meeting similar to Zoom or Google Meet. You don't even have to have your own Teams account. There are certain capabilities that are lost for somebody who's coming from an outside organization. But for the most part, you can do anything, and I can even still create you to be a presenter. So if you were to join my team session, I can just designate you to be a presenter, so you have full capability.
I could hear them, they could hear me, but they couldn't see me.
Oh, that's very strange.
Multiple times. So I can talk to you about this separately. I don't want to hold up the meeting if it's too specific.
And we can set up a time where we can do the session more broadly and advertise it out, because I think that's something a lot of teachers would want to hear. Or if you want to make a video about how to make videos, it's something I can push out and then they can watch as they want to.
Sure,
so,
sure.
Yeah, let's talk more about that. It's a great idea.
Okay, thank you all.
Demoya asked, if a teaching artist had a TB test done a year ago or less, is it still considered valid? I don't believe so, but then again, I know the DCPS clearance lasts for 2 years, but I don't know how far out the TB test needs to have been prior to getting the clearance. So I would, when you go to the DCPS website where you would get the clearance, there's a contact email there. I would reach out to them directly and ask them that question. They'd have a better answer for you. The next question was, is there a deadline for fingerprinting this fall? I don't know if we figured out what that date is. There may be one. Again, I'd recommend reaching out to the clearance office directly, or if we find that date out, we can message it out to all of you. But I think the best bet would be reaching out to them on what that deadline is, if there is one.
Yeah, there's usually not a deadline. It's just before you have any interaction with the students. Yeah. And then as far as the deadline, I think that we were referencing earlier was more the partnership that DCPS has with Field Prints. So being able to go to a Field Print office and get your background check done there instead of having to come to DCPS. That's a limited partnership.
Right. And the next question from the same person, as you mentioned earlier in this session, with the schedule that Wednesdays are independent days, should programming not take place on Wednesdays?
Not at all. You can definitely still do it then. I think it would just depend on, I would talk to the teacher and the school to find out if they have, and I have not heard this from any schools, but I could see a school maybe doing it where they say that absolutely no programming. We want to protect this time to be independent study and not any kind of synchronous engagement. So I would just double check with them on that, but I really don't see any reason why they wouldn't.
Addie, this is a great question. Are the units in the arts framework typically taught sequentially as they're ordered?
No. So we do, so art teachers can be a little fickle when it comes to, what they teach from year to year, and we want to give them the ability to change it up, especially since we have grade bands. So if it's K through 2 and they know they've already taught the students something in kindergarten, they have something else to teach in 1st or 2nd grade. Also thinking through, like this year, I've had several conversations with teachers on this just today. In a 9-week course, we have the new Living Through History Cornerstone, which is an opening cornerstone that all students are going through in every content area where they're sort of archiving what they've been through recently, whether it's to do with COVID or the Black Lives Matter movement or just being quarantined. So they're doing lots of really great projects, and especially on the art side, because we're the arts, we really focused on the Black Lives Matter movement. And so it's a little bit of a heavy subject, I would say, for the kids. So I have suggested to teachers that they pick something maybe a little bit lighter afterwards. So not moving into like the powerful characters unit, which is, placing yourself in a Kehinde Wiley painting, but instead maybe do like the Andy Goldsworthy nature walk, something just to kind of give a little break and flow for the students, especially the little guys.
Adriana asked, what is the date that you just mentioned? That's the one that you were curious about? I'm not sure.
Oh, for the fingerprints? I need to find out a definite, but I'm 90% sure it was end of September, like September 23rd or something like that. But I can find that out and let Trey know to push that information out.
Yeah, and I'm sure that that information might also be on their website, Adriana. So if you reach out to the DCPS clearance office, they'll have all of that information for you better than we would, because they're the office that regulates that.
Definitely.
Okay, that's the end of the questions that I see in the chat box. Does anyone else have any other questions for Mary while we have her?
I feel like I need to throw out, because as I'm seeing your faces, emails that are due to people, and I'm very sorry. I'm way behind on where I would normally be. I always pride myself on responding in 24 hours, but that's not happening.
Yeah, we were saying we're not commodity. So we're happy that you joined us today.
Oh, of course.
I just wanted to mention really quickly, I know Wendy is on here too, and Mary referenced our collective impact work together with Mr. Holland's Opus. So DCPS is pulling the school data. Mary's leading that effort with Mr. Holland's Opus, and the DC Collaborative is pulling the community partner data. So I know like 70 of you have already submitted, but we do have a little bit of flexibility with the due date, and the survey is still open. So you can contact Wendy or I if you haven't submitted your data for the collective impact mapping project yet. I'll just put the link for more information in the chat too. But again, this is really important this year, especially with COVID, so we can see like, we have really comprehensive data for the 17-18 school year. So seeing what the DCPS environment was like prior to, during, and what will be after COVID will be really important. So yes, and then Wendy put the direct link right there. You've probably seen both of us on emails begging you to fill out the survey. So I just wanted to, Wendy, if you want to say something so people can see your face, because you've been emailing them a lot.
You've probably seen my name many times via very many different emails about assessment and surveys in the past. So here I am. But it's also really nice to see some of you, either for the first time or the first few times. We've received a lot of responses so far. And if you have not had the time to, sorry, my baby is like shouting in the background. So if you have not received our emails for whatever reasons, or if you just haven't had the time to fill out the survey, we definitely have more time for you. So we are officially closing the survey completely on September 25th, I believe, is a Friday. So you still have a bit more time if you need it. Yeah. And if you have any questions, let us know too. Thank you.
Another quick plug just while we have you all here. So the distance learning resource database is something else that we will be pushing out to teachers during our orientation with them in the coming days, as well as throughout the year. And we're hoping to feature some of your resources on our learning database. And so if you have resources that are electronic and downloadable, Tracy just linked the database into the chat box. Check it out, submit to us your resources, because those are things that parents as well as teachers have been using in the class and outside of the class to supplement learning for the students. So feel free to continuously upload that. We have well over 150 resources on it now. So thank you so much for everyone who has contributed thus far. It's been wonderful to see it grow. And this is all just with our DC community, which is vast and diverse. And so that's really wonderful for us. And we've been really happy to see everything that you've offered and continue to submit. And then the last thing is, if you are an office provider for the fall, you should know who you are. Hi, Ada. We will be having our office provider orientation on September 10th, and you should have received a link to that RSVP in your email this past week. Karen, I'm reading your message. I think we discussed the possibility of having an IG or Facebook page account to share techniques, lessons that are working with students in this environment. Is that still a possibility? Are you talking about a Facebook group with office members or just other practitioners with Collaborative?
Open. I think we just floated the idea months ago and it didn't get specific, but it would be nice to be open to teaching artists, organizations, staff, DCPS, you know, an open group. The openness, I think, is working so beautifully with a lot of these directions right now.
I think, the DC Collaborative is managing the new online membership portal, MemberClicks, and we have several listservs on there where people can share information that we haven't activated in like the most robust way yet. The DC Collaborative also already has a Facebook page. So I think that we can all continue to share things and be open on the channels that are already there, and not to shoot it down because it is a great idea. But
no, I'm glad it's already in progress. That's great.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you all so much for joining us today. And if you have any other questions, feel free to email myself, Tracy, or Mary, or Alyssa, or anybody at the team, and I'm sure we'll navigate who has the answer for you. And we look forward to chatting with you all again soon. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. If you're going to the march tomorrow, I hope to see you there. Take care.
Thank you all.
Guys.